Hey guys, it's the best of hockey and I'm back with another video, and today we'll be looking at the top 15 NHL players for the next decade. I did some pretty thorough research and, tried to do my best estimates as to who will be the best for the next the next 10 years. And I have 5 players that just missed out on this list, being Brady Tkachuk, Quinn Hughes, Adam Fantilli, Miro Heiskanen, and David Pastrnak. So let's begin with number 15. I have Mikko Rantanen. So he'll be 26 years old to 36 years old, and right now he's in his prime. He's on pace for around 100 points over the last 3 seasons combined, and he'll probably have around 3 or more seasons in his prime, and after that, maybe 4 years of being, a really good, solid player. And then he'll probably start to slow down in his mid-30s, but this is a really good player right now, a player who will continue to be good over the next couple of years. At number 14, I have Nathan MacKinnon. He's going to be 28 years old to 37 years old, and for the past few years, he's been a top 3 NHL player. And in his prime, he scored on a 115-point pace over the last 5 years. That's an insane amount, and I believe he still has around 3 or more years left in his prime, and after that, he'll have maybe 3 to 4 more years of being, having a really high level of play, and then he'll start to slow down in his mid-30s. But right now, he's unbelievable, and for the next couple of years, he will be too. At number 13, I have Matthew Tkachuck. So he'll be 25 to 35 years old, and he's worse right now than Nathan MacKinnon and Mikko Rantanen, but he's younger than them by a couple of years. I think it's 1 or 2. And he broke out as a top 20 NHL player in the past 2 years, and he can score at an 100 to 100 point pace, I believe, in the next 3 years or so, and over, a 90 point pace or something like that for another 4 to 5 years after that. And he will regress. He'll have a little bit of a slump for the last 2 to 3 years, but that's inevitable because he'll be in his mid-30s by then. But he's a really solid player, and he's only going to continue to get better soon. At number 12, I have Elias Pettersson, and he will be 24 to 34 years old, and he's younger than Matthew Tkachuk and has a similar ceiling than he does. And he's higher than him because he's younger, and he broke out this year as an over 100-point player, and he's hitting his prime right now. And I can see him score between 90 to 110 points for the next 5, 6, 7 years. And after that, he'll slow down just a little bit in his early 30s, which is inevitable again. But yeah, he's a very solid player, good defensively, and I believe he could win a trophy or 2 at some point. At number 11, I have Jason Robertson, and he'll be 24 to 33 years old. And I think he is around the same age, but I think he'll have a slightly higher ceiling than Elias Pettersson, at least offensively. He broke out last season, and he's scoring at over 100 points this year, which is crazy. He's just entering his prime, so he's only going to get better. He's really young, so I think he could win a couple trophies in the future at some point. He might score at a slightly higher rate than Pettersson for the next couple years, which is why I have him higher. And I think at the end, he will inevitably slow down due to his age. So at number 10, I have Mitch Marner, and he's 25, and he'll be 34 years old when this is over. He's in his prime right now, having his best seasons. He's scored at over 100-point pace in the last 3 seasons, and he'll be in his prime for at least another couple years, maybe 3 to 4, maybe even 5 years. And he will be a great player for another 3 years after that. But he too will probably start to slow down in his early 30s. So at number 9, I have Leon Draisaitl, and he'll be 27 to 37 years old. He's in his prime right now, but he's been in his prime for the last 5 seasons, and he scored at over an 120-point pace during that time. He has maybe 4 years or so left scoring at a really high rate like this, and he'll probably start to regress bit by bit after that, but don't count on him being not an effective player 6 years from now, because I really believe that he'll still be a very, very solid scorer. And during these next couple of years, I still believe that he'll be a top 5 NHL player. At number 8, I have Adam Fox, and he's 25 years old, and he'll be 34 when this is over. And he's been a top 5 defenseman for the last 3 seasons. He's in his prime, but he's still fairly young, so there's a possibility that he'll still improve maybe slightly. And he has, I would say, at least 4 to 5 more years in his prime, possibly going to win another Norris, and maybe a few years of really solid hockey in his early 30s. But yeah, he will eventually slow down too, just due to his age. But he's a very effective player and will continue to be really good. At number 7, I have Rasmus Dahlin. He is 23 and will be 32 when this is over, and he is younger than Adam Fox, but arguably better than he is already, at least this year. And he emerged this year as a top 5 defenseman and still has room to grow into one of the best players of the next 10 years. He's still entering his prime. As I said, he's only 23, and he has, I would say, another 7 years of amazing hockey left, possibly winning a Norris or two. And he might regress a bit in the past few years, but I wouldn't say that he would really get dry during those years because he's so young. At number 6, I have Tim Stutzle, and he is 21 years old and he'll be 30 when this is done. So he's the youngest NHL player on this list, which is amazing because I'm a Sens fan. And he broke out this year as a top 20 player in the league, and he's on pace for 96 points. That's such a young age. And he's just entering his prime right now, and has around, I would say, 7 or even more years in his prime, scoring between 90 to 110 points a season, followed by a slight regression, maybe when he hits age 30 or something like that. But I can see him definitely winning a couple of offensive awards. That's how dominant he'll be. And as much as this pains me, I have Auston Matthews at number 5. He's 26 years old and he'll be 35 when this is done. And I think it is very, very close between him and Stutzle, especially because Stutzle is very young. And Matthews is right now in his prime, having a slight down year. But overall, I'd say Matthews is still in his prime and has a higher ceiling than Stutzle does over the next few years. And over the last 4 years, Matthews has averaged an 103-point pace, and he's capable of much more than that. As I said, his ceiling is higher than Stutzle, so I believe that he'll outplay Stutzle for the first couple of years, at least maybe 4 years or so during this period, but it's extremely close. But I think Auston Matthews will continue to be a very consistent scorer over this time period. He'll win a couple more Rockets and probably some other awards, maybe an Art Ross or two, or Ted Lindsay, who knows. At number 4, I have Jack Hughes, and he's 21 years old and will be 30 when this is over, and he's also extremely young and is now on pace for just over 100 points this year, which is ridiculous at such a young age. He broke out last year but is now entering his prime, and he has a very, very high ceiling. I expect him to surpass Auston Matthews in a few years, and I can see him scoring around 100 to 110 points for like 5-6 years, maybe winning an Art Ross or two in the process. And being so young, he will only regress slightly by the time he's 30 years old. So at number 3, I have Cale Makar, and he's 24 years old and will be 34 when this is done. He's already a top 2 defenseman in the NHL, arguably the best, and he's having his best offensive year in his career. He's in his prime right now, and he'll probably have around 7, 8, even 9 more years of being a point-per-game player, even more, while winning multiple Norris trophies. And he will regress in his early 30s, but it's also possible that he'll stay just as offensively dominant as he is right now, or very close to it. At number 2, I have the only non-NHL player on this list, and that is Connor Bedard. He'll be 18 years old when he begins his NHL career, which is pretty insane, and he'll be 27 by the time this period is finished. He's going to be the future of hockey, in my opinion. Everything points to him being the next generational player. So he has the highest ceiling on anybody on this list, but I can't have him higher than you-know-who because he's still unproven. He hasn't made the NHL yet. I would assume it takes him maybe 1 to 2 years to become a superstar, but after that he'll tear up the league and will someday replace Connor McDavid as the face of hockey. He'll win many, many awards, that's for sure. And finally, at number 1, you guys already knew, I have Connor McDavid. He is 26 years old and will be 36 years old when this is finished. He's having the best season of his career and the best season we've ever seen since Mario Lemieux in the 1990s, which is like 30 years ago, which is crazy. And he's been scoring at an 122-point pace his entire career. So it's likely that he'll keep up this ridiculous scoring touch for at least a couple more seasons, maybe 3, 4, 5 more years. And after that, he might regress slightly, just ever so slightly, but in his mid-30s. I'd still expect him to win many more trophies and hopefully the ultimate one, the Stanley Cup. And that brings us to the end of my list. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. Please make sure to let me know in the comments down below whether you agree or disagree with my list. I think it's pretty good. And yeah, make sure to stay tuned for more videos like this. See you guys.